in Poland we recorded a familiar picture of how the nature of jobs change. There is much more non-routine cognitive work being conducted these days than 20 years ago. There is much less manual work being conducted these days in comparison to 20 years ago. What's different from findings for the US or Germany is that, contrary to these countries, routine cognitive work has also been increasing in Poland. So that's one difference, probably also for other medium income economies. The other basic finding is that we've noticed that there has been like intergenerational divide between how workers born before 1969 evolved on the labor market and how workers born in the 70s or 80s changed the way they work. In essence, the entire change in the task content of jobs in Poland can be explained by what happened to workers born in the 70s and 80s who were entering the labor market in the 90s and in the 2000s. So for people who started their careers in the centrally planned economies or right after the transition, barely anything changed. And for people who were entering later on, it changed a lot. Most of the difference between the older workers and the younger workers, and also most of the evolution of task content of jobs within cohorts over time, can be explained by what happened to educational structure and educational attainment of particular cohorts. So that tertiary education boom that I mentioned before is actually able to explain 90% of the entire change happening within cohorts. In some sense, it is possible that the Polish experience, that the older workers were left behind, it might be a time-specific phenomenon, because in the 90s, the IT penetration of households was very low in Poland. So the people who were getting first into computers were just kids and youth. So naturally, they grew more familiar how to use it at work as well. So in Polish case, it's very challenging these days to catch up with this. And even the government is trying to, especially the municipalities, they try to organize some kind of assistance for older people who don't have the access to technology. I don't think it's possible to make them really using it at work fluently if they are over 50. Also because the way how their human capital evolved over their life course was influenced by the fact that they don't really expect to upgrade their skills. And if people were not upgrading their skills when they were like 30 and 40, and then there is a big shock when they're 50, I think it's unlikely that they will catch up. So the one lesson would be that to try to keep people engaged in skill upgrading throughout their life course, even if there is no big shock on the horizon. So just keep them used to learning new things, even on a small scale all the time, because then when there is like a huge shock that you have to catch up, it's easier for you to do it comparison to education that you are just lazy, let's say, for the last 20 years.